Hi guys, Brandon here, also known as Ujavi, around different various parts of the internet. Finally breaking down, deciding to throw my hand into the FlossTube game. Been thinking about it for a little while now. I'm a pseudo-regular stitcher and kind of hoping this will hold me accountable to make me a regular stitcher. Work through some of my backlog of works in progress, get some more finishes than what I currently have, and just all in all get more in depth and in touch with the community, just because, you know, being a male stitcher, sometimes it's a little harder to find other male stitchers, so kind of reaching out there, seeing what we can find. A little bit about my background with stitching. I've been doing it for about 6 years now. Ended up starting because me and my wife went over to her parents' house because her and her mom were going to stitch. I jokingly said to them sitting on the couch, "Give me something, I'll stitch it." They laughed at me. I assured them I was serious. They got me a very small, very simple start. And apparently I was pretty good at it and been doing it ever since. I am going to steal some questions from the Know Your Needleworker tag just to kind of, I don't know, I didn't really know how to start, where to start, that kind of all that fun stuff, which I'm sure anyone who started one of these has gone through. Where to live? In Ohio currently. We moved here to be with my wife's parents, to be closer to them, be closer to that part of the family. Any children? No plans for children. I have too many expensive hobbies as it is, and don't want to add another one. That would take precedence. The next question, which is very apropos because she's on the move: do you have any pets? Why, yes, we do. And right there is Watson, who is going to have such a rough life from walking that far from out of her bed to collapse on the floor outside my door. We do have one other pet. We have a cat named Mayhem, and she's probably lying on the bed or at the steps. She's trying to steal the spotlight. You can tell, guys. She's jealous. Other hobbies besides stitching. I am a gamer, so video games and board, both. I play mostly on PC these days, and then we do have an extensive collection of board games, and no, not just Monopoly and that ilk. The actual, really, you vying for that attention. Hopefully the internet loves you, Watson, because we do as well. But yeah, so video and board, both games, both pretty big part. Favorite movie is going to be Star Wars. You couldn't see that gesture. Star Wars. Yeah, it's been my favorite movie as long as I can remember, ever since I saw it growing up, and it still remains to this day. Favorite TV show would probably have to go to Doctor Who. Ever since I finally never saw the old stuff, got to the new stuff when they had Christopher Eccleston rebooted as the Doctor, all the way up to David Tennant being my favorite Doctor myself personally. Thank you, Watson. Mine too. Favorite book? It's actually a series, and it's The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, lovingly known as the greatest 5-part book trilogy ever, because it was originally just 3 books, and then he ended up writing 2 more, so the trilogy kind of became a misnomer for it. Favorite music? It's probably more rock orientated, a little more punk, alternative-ish, but yeah. And one word to best describe me would probably be geeky, nerdy, some form or fashion of that. As you can tell by the decor on the shelves, and as you'll see in my collection of stitching and works in progress and completions, they are mostly of a video game or nerdy nature, and especially a lot of it because video games, especially the old original Nintendo, Super Nintendo stuff, being pixel based, lends itself really well because X's and cross stitch are just essentially pixels. That gray furry object that came lovingly running into the room, that is Mayhem. That is our cat. She's taken up recently to wanting just to hang out under my desk, and I'm not sure why, but that's where she sits. You'll probably hear her meow at some point. But yeah, so that's more my style of stitching, is going to be more of that stuff. I have started finding some designers now that kind of have designs and stuff that I like, that kind of look for me, being essentially ink circles, long dog, of that ilk. And so I've actually got, one of those is a start from ink circles, and I did just pick up Templar prophecies from long dog. So speaking of, then we'll go through, I guess, some works in progress that I currently have. This is by all means not all of them. These are probably just the ones I'm working on the most often or have the most completion on. I do have several other things that are simply kitted up and ready to start, or have just a handful of stitches in them. The first will be, I will show ink circles. I will have to pop in a picture, because I don't have the front of it, that is of the pattern, the cover that shows the completed object. But here is what I've got. Pretty much all the top corner done of the black. And so we're making some good steady progress on it. That one hopefully is going to be a nice and quick one. This is on Ada. Don't ask me what count or fancy names for them. I am terrible at either remembering or knowing those. So that's something I will have to work on in the future, just because I know people get curious. But it's kind of like a nice light gray on Ada. It's either probably 14. It's probably 14. It's either 14 or 16. I'm almost sure of, though, looking at it. But no, I'm terrible at those things. I see some of the others and they're like, this is this on that and that, and I'm like, it's fabric. It allows me to put tiny X's on it that then make an overall design. But it is on the docket to work on, to be better with. The next is probably my oldest work in progress. I do have what it's supposed to look like. And it is from the video game series Portal. And it's kind of done in a flash tattoo style design. And this is what I've got thus far on it. So, got a good little chunk. It'll get there one day. But it's actually been a while since I've worked on this particular piece, because it got put aside for some other starts that were more interesting. I'm at a point where it's a lot of fill-in, and I get bored and sidetracked very easily. Cue me getting sidetracked 2 minutes ago with the dog and her antics. So I kind of have to switch up often, or I'm just going to stop and not do it because I'm like, I'm bored of this. I want something new, something different. So the one thing I will never be is a monogamous stitcher. Sorry to all you monogamous stitchers out there. I do always have to kind of have multiples going on. Coming up next is from Legend of Zelda. It is, and I'll put in a completed image of what it's supposed to look like, but it is the Triforce with all the items from the various Legend of Zelda games throughout the years. I do have the top one completed and have now started working on the bottom ones. Once I get that done, there'll be 2 there on the bottom. Once again, this is an orange Ada. That's a fabric that allows me to put tiny X's into it to make an overall bigger picture. 310 DMC floss. There's a bug that's now really bothering me. Coming up next is I'm doing the Doctor Who pillow sampler from Cloud's Factory. And this is where I am. So it's essentially the first top corner page done with a little bit of a TARDIS there for good measure. I am using Weeks Dye Works variegated floss for this to give it that nice variegation. It is my first foray into variegated floss and my first foray into just using one strand at a time, since most of my projects with the DMC and with Ada, it's your typical 2. And then the last one I'll show you today is an Etsy find, Stitch Bucket, the right thing to do. It is, of course, the helmet from Stormtrooper FN 2187. This is where I am. For the most part, the helmet's all complete, but again, we've hit that fill-in portion of cross-stitch where then I do some, then I'm like, I'm done, this is boring, where is the fun? But eventually we'll get the rest of that fill-in, and we'll get the words on there. That'll be an object. This is a gray fabric that allows me to put tiny X's into it to make an overall image. Ada. So, with that out of the way, I do have some finished things to show you from my illustrious 6 years of stitching. And this is the vast majority of all my finishes because there's not that many. We'll start with a couple of recent ones. This first one is going to go on our coffee wall, and before I hold it up upside down, this is Star Fox Coffee. Of course, being a lovely play on words of Starbucks coffee. Jen gets the joy of more coffee-themed things on her coffee wall. I get the joy of it being video game and nerdy related. Following that is just a little Be My Player 2 with a very tiny NES controller. I think this was a Stitchy Box fabric at one point. It was a little bit of a pain to stitch on because they were hard to see. No, not that hard to see, but the little white dots kind of made it a pain in the butt because they're just kind of painted or like dabbed on or something. So you actually had to like forcefully push your needle through, so it was kind of hard. I stitch in hand sewing method, so it kind of made it hard to get a rhythm for some of this stuff because then you'd have to force and poke through. After that, I have another portal thing that's finished, and it's a long one, so I'm going to try to get the whole thing in. But there we go, we'll just pull back some. But it's all the little turns in the portals, and they talk to you. And they all say cute little different things to try to convince you not to harm them. It doesn't work because they start shooting you, and then you don't want to not harm them even though they say cute little things. Following that, I have It's Dangerous to Go Alone, the infamous phrase from the original Legend of Zelda all those years ago, where it was socially acceptable to be an old man and give a young child a sword from a cave. Done, of course, as you could tell, on black Ada, which was a pain in the butt, just because it was hard to see doing the stitch and hand stuff. So while it didn't take too terribly long, it did kind of dissuade me from stitching on black Ada ever again. Coming up next, we have Donatello from the Ninja Turtles. This is actually from one of the character select pictures from one of the arcade game. But it is one of the few things I've done that is full coverage. Originally was my intent to do all four and kind of have just a piece of that, and I've actually got some other kitted up turtles that is all four of them all in the same piece instead of individual. I never made it. I finished Donatello and didn't have a desire to do the other three. Sorry. Not sorry. Coming up next from my favorite book series, previously mentioned, is what's on the cover of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The big words, "Don't Panic." And then we have another thing that I have stitched for my wife. She loves robots, so it's pretty obvious and easy to find things to stitch. So it's just some robots. Robots scan love. And then we'll come up to the things that are actually fully finished. We'll start with a Metroid from the video game of the same name. It's done on this like almost neon. It's hard to tell in this light, but it's almost like if I turn it a little bit, catch the light. You can kind of see it, but it's like a neon green. And if we zoom in a little bit closer, and if you kind of look on the outside edges, or like kind of right there where my finger is, you can see. Let's see how well this camera does. Yeah, so you can see the kind of the white lines in between the blacks. That's actually glow in the dark floss, just because it kind of gives the kind of the electricalness when you can see it from when it's got charged. But it's the only time I've ever done glow in the dark floss, and it was just kind of like, let's give it a try, see what it is. I I do not remember the name of this, but it is one of the other few things I've done that's from an actual designer. So it's a little mad scientist dude making some, actually not really participating in good laboratory practices, because you shouldn't drink things straight from your beakers, kids. And then another, I guess technically full coverage finish is the Hylian shield from Legend of Zelda. Again, being my favorite video game series, I tend to stitch a lot of Zelda. Another highly favorite TV show is the Mythbusters, and so here's just the silhouettes of their two hosts. Just done. I don't think this is actually done. It doesn't. I think it's like a dark blue. I don't think that's actually black. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure this is like a dark blue instead of an actual black, because it just doesn't look the same. Here's a finish that is on linen. Again, just binary heart. Easy and simple, quick and easy. And then we will finish up here with the first thing I ever stitched all those 6 years ago. Here it is. It was a little owl, a little Halloween ghost duder thing boo. So this is the first thing. That's what they ran and gave me that first time when they thought I was joking. And we did, and we finished that. So that's what I have to show. That's what I'm currently working on. That's what my finishes are for now. Like I said, I do have a bunch of things that are kitted up, ready to go. So I'm hoping that, having to film on some sort of semi-regular basis will encourage me to stitch more often and a little more quickly. That way we can get through some of these works in progress, and show some more finishes and show some more new starts for you guys. Like I said, new to this, so let me know what you think. Let me know what you guys are stitching, what you guys do for fun. And we'll talk to you next time. Like I said, my name is Brandon, also known as Ujavi around the parts of the internet. Have a good night.